a lot of the operators that I've trained over the years, um, other clients that have had to use the information, um, they never come back to me and say, they'll do a debrief on how it went, and we'll go over things, what they liked, what they didn't like, what went for them. But it always came back to one thing. They go, damn it, I've been training too fast. Nobody's ever come back saying, hey, I need to go faster. Never had a time in my professional life where Americans have been more concerned about their own self-protection. Okay, so this is part 2 with my interview with Dr. Mark Cheng. We ended up yesterday talking about the idea of training, tempo. And this whole section, if you listen to this, regardless of what type of training you're doing, you will have a quantum leap in your ability to execute. Not only fast, but accurate, and doing it exactly the way you want to do it. Mark really is a master at this, and his explanations through this, I think, are probably some of the best. I've watched this segment probably 4 times myself, just because I got so much out of it, and I did the interview. So I hope you do the same. I hope you take the time to really take advantage of this. Again, there are a few people in the industry that have the depth of knowledge that Mark has, and the humility, that he has of putting it out. He's very accomplished, and he's worked with just about every major martial artist, combat sport practitioner that's out there, and his knowledge in the fitness world and conditioning is just, second to none. But this segment is something that I just really hope people understand. This is a huge value you can get out of it. And I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed listening to it and presenting it to you. So again, part 2 with Dr. Mark Cheng. I try to take up a new skill set every year. And my main reason is, I have an interest in whatever it is, obviously, but it's also to go back to being a student again. And I deliberately pick something that I've never done before. And it's constant. I have to slow down on everything. There's never been anything that I've got into right away where we were going full speed. You really had to get those fundamentals down. It's like you said, comparing it to the prerequisite of a course is so vital. I mean, that to me is a great description of it, because I'm as guilty of it as anybody. I will jump into things without laying the right foundation, and then I did it recently. I'll tell you, I did it recently. I'm learning shooting, and I switched over to, there's a course I want to take that requires me to be really good using a pistol, a red dot on a pistol. And I've usually only done iron sights. So they told me, hey, it's going to take you about 6 months before you feel really comfortable doing it. I'm like, yeah, whatever, So I got out there. Sure enough, man, speed was just my enemy. And wow. I had to slow back down. I had to, redo it. And now I'm finding that they're absolutely right, that I can see where I'm going because I'm going slow enough to see what I'm doing wrong. And it was really hard for my ego, because I thought I was a pretty good shot, and I am, but this is a new skill set, and that's where we are. And so I think we as humans that's why I love little kids so much, because, I got 3 little ones right now, and they don't, we judge ourselves so much as adults. We're afraid to do new things because we don't want to look bad. And I always say in my class, before we start any seminar, I say, hey, give yourself permission to do this poorly, and learn from it, because it's where you learn the most, although it's hard to do. You really laid that out, perfectly, because we've talked a lot about the idea of slow, methodical training and how it leads to proper, fast execution. But you've got concrete examples of that with the people that you've worked with and what you've done over the years. And if you could just help people out with that concept a little bit, that would be great.
Sure. I mean, even with just like you said, I mean, and I think it bears repeating for your audience. I mean, like, you're a guy that's put, I would argue, maybe in the millions of rounds down range. I mean, like, certainly past the thousands in terms of trigger pulls. And for a guy like you to be able to go like, okay, yeah, for this red dot, I really need to slow it down. I really need to dial it in. I really need to be precise and take my time. That's huge. I mean, that's massive. And I think that's the attitude more of us need to adopt, more of us need to have as our default. Like, if you think about sports, right? when was the last time in pro sports that there was a questionable call that they just played the footage back at speed only?
Right.
Never.
Right.
Never. Like, we've always slowed it down. We've always looked at it from different angles, always tried to go, is it? And why don't we do that in other areas of our life? I have to, that's a big question to me. So like, when it comes to slowing down, I mean, and also like putting yourself in that beginner position, and so we don't have to have that ego. Like, I want, like, it's funny, I think one of the things that, one of the best things that came out of my divorce was that my ex, when I said, like, okay, when we split up, I was like, okay, well, I'm still gonna do martial arts with the kids. And she's like, no, you're not. And I'm like, oh, but yes, I am. And she's like, well, if that's going to be the case, then you're going to have too much, what did she say? Too much control over the kids. So you have to find a style that you don't have a rank in at a school that you have no affiliation. And I'm like, okay. And so lo and behold, total like serendipity, right between our two houses, there's a Taekwondo school. And I was like, okay, at the time I didn't have any rank in Taekwondo, no formal rank in Taekwondo. Didn't know the instructor. And so I called one of my friends and I was like, hey, have you ever heard of this guy, Young In Chun? And my friend, John Engum, who's one of the senior most guys in Strong First, he goes, oh yeah, he was the US Olympic coach for the Sydney Olympics. I go, oh, okay, yeah, he's legit. Like, doesn't get too much better than that. So I, strapped on a white belt, went into his school, enrolled myself in the kids. And it's like, I want the kids to see me struggling, like trying to learn new stuff right along with them. Because if dad always has to be like, the man, then like, they don't know how to behave when they're not like in that position of authority. So when they see their dad, they're like their archetype of like the male authority figure, listening, slowing down, paying attention, being respectful, then they know, like, this is how I should behave too. So, dad knows how to kick, dad knows how to do these things, but he's paying attention to the details of how they kick, how they stand, how they execute, and trying to look for like, trying to glean the little, like the gold nuggets out of their deliveries. And same thing, like these days, like after the kids, got their ranks in Taekwondo, and I did as well. We shifted gears to Aikido. And lately I started training with Matsuoka Haruo and his dojo in Irvine. For your listeners who don't know who Matsuoka Sensei is, he uses the former #1 of Steven Seagal. So if you look back through any of the old Seagal movies, when Seagal was a lot leaner, and when he's doing these throws that look like they're about to kill somebody, the guy that's receiving those throws is usually Matsuoka.
I try to tell people that all the time, is that the fact that when you watch anything like that, watch the person they're doing it on, because that's the person with a higher skill set. Not that the person's not good, but I mean, when we do stuff all the time, people say, oh, you look really great. I go, well, watch my reaction partner. Look how good he is at doing that. I go, that's the real skill set, because if you can be on the receiving end and let somebody take it right to that, that inch, that is amazing to do that. And so, the one thing I always liked about, did you find when you studied Aikido, I found that my students, the people that pick up our stuff the quickest on our end, it's either they have a dance background, or Aikido is another one. And the Aikido guys, just because their real understanding of stance and movement is really useful to them. And so then I just have to put in a couple of blocks, but I rarely have to adjust them on, oftentimes if I'm showing a movement or something, I notice the Aikido guys get right there. They look at the feet, they see where you're going, and they adjust for that. Did the stances that you learned in Aikido, and the movement, did that really help you in other things?
A lot of Aikido for me is like right now, just understanding that I'm still very, very new, like very, very low down the totem pole of Aikido. We've only been doing that for like maybe 3-4 months now, if that. So training regularly there at Matsuoka's dojo. But the head instructor, Josh Gold, is very precise in how he delivers stuff. So it's very interesting, because I've spent probably the majority of my training hours over the past few years at the Inasano Academy,
Yeah.
where the footwork is, there's so many different footwork patterns that you end up just having to flow with each drill. And there's a level of precision in Aikido that at least the way Josh teaches, there's such precision that it's been like eye-opening for me. Like, oh my God, like now I understand, okay, I shouldn't just put my foot randomly. Like I need to put it exactly there for this particular type of result. And if I'm off and I'm just kind of sloppy with it, then like I can muscle my way through the technique, but it doesn't lend me the same kind of leverage.
Right.
So like that kind of understanding of how the totality of the body comes together to optimize leverage. I think the Aikido folks, especially when they come from lineages like that, really get it.
Yeah, I try to tell people the value of crawl, walk, run in any endeavor is only going to make them better. Um, when I was learning how to Olympic lift, I did it with an empty bar, and just literally a PVC bar, and they wouldn't let me progress to anything until I could show that I had decent form and that I could handle a load. And then it went in, and it was just mind numbing. And I remember when I first learned to shoot, dry firing was just mind numbing, and I couldn't see the value of it right away. And yet when we go to test, later on some sort of a pressure test where we do something, all those skills were right there for you. Most people though really want to forgo that. They don't want to spend the time. And I think what's hard for a lot of people, Mark, is that slow training, or when you go slow enough to feel your mistakes, it can be a little disheartening at times. I've never felt that way. I've always felt like, oh, good, I learned. Now I gotta adjust a little bit. But I've had a long time to condition my mind to favor that, and to recognize that, because I realize if I can get it right here, then when I go to execute as fast as possible, I'm going to be well within that range to make sure that it's as powerful as it can be, whatever I'm trying to do.
Yeah, I think the slowing down is really awesome in a lot of ways, because it, like I said before, it allows you the time to be perceptive. I hate to say this and throw him under the bus since he's my teacher's teacher, but I think Bruce Lee, I think a lot of people quote Bruce Lee saying that like, oh, all these other training methods that don't have to do with actually fighting aren't fighting, therefore we shouldn't do them, we shouldn't waste time on them, we should just be doing more sparring. And I think they're missing who Bruce was talking to. I mean, like most of the people that came to train with him were not beginners. These were established martial artists already. And most of the people that came into his classes, from what I understand, like before he would even teach you a single kick or punch, it was all about like, do you have a requisite level of physical fitness to be able to do certain things? And so being able to go slow to appreciate like the progression of things and like internalize the attributes that you need to be able to be perceptive enough to see what's going on, to physically be able to withstand what's going on, to be able to reproduce the movement without being totally lost. I mean, like people think that getting to the good stuff, and I say that in air quotes, because it's like the good stuff is really the simplest and the most like it seems almost ridiculously fundamental, but when you own that stuff more often, like your example of the Oli lift, working the Oli lift with a PVC pipe, what most people don't get is if you go really, really slow, almost with no load, if you go super slow like that, your stabilizers are working actually way, way, way more than they would if you were like doing like an explosive fast lift. Because the explosive fast lift, your body can rely on the prime movers rather than the stabilizers. Not to say that the stabilizers are off, but like when you go super slow and you're mindful of posture and you're mindful of all these things, like your nervous system gets calibrated a different way. And that different way is the way that like allows your prime movers to move and work more efficiently, because the stabilizers can stabilize and the prime movers can do their thing. So like these little progressions are super important when it comes to anything that we do that's physical, and certainly like way more than people appreciate when it comes to what's going on mentally.
Yeah, it's funny. A lot of the operators that I've trained over the years, other clients, that have had to use the information, they never come back to me and say, you know, they'll do a debrief on how it went, and we'll go over things, what they liked, what they didn't like, you know, what went for them. But it always came back to one thing. They go, damn it, I've been training too fast. Nobody's ever come back saying, hey, I need to go faster. You know, whatever they were doing in their free practice or their sparring, they were working probably with one particular partner who knew all, you know, zigs and zags. So there's a laziness to it, and it allowed them to add speed without really worrying about accuracy as much. And then when they had to go execute, that paid a price. They didn't get exactly what they wanted the first strike, or they were off a little bit, and they saw that. And so they've come back, and it's been really interesting to hear very hardcore guys who are well-known come back and say, hey, when they tell you to go slow, make sure you go slow. Make sure you really get this in. The hard and the fast will be there. Now, people take that. I don't want people to take this like we are advocating that you only do slow training and you never do fast execution. You never do it. But I think what we're both in agreement is I don't see enough of that being laid down at the foundation level for new students. And I say really, it's the rare school that really teaches those fundamentals and drills those fundamentals in early on.
I think a lot of us actually say that, or a lot of people will say that. Like, for example, the Inasano Academy. I've heard Guru Inasano say no shortage of times, slow down, slow down, slow down. And he'll give vignettes from his own past where he talks about his teachers, like Juanito Lacosta, his legendary Kali teacher, who said, like, you go fast because you cannot do it slow, you cannot do it right, so you try to cover up with speed. And like, Guru will always throw himself under the bus that way, and he'll tell us, slow down, slow down, slow down. And you'll see all these guys in the room like nod, like, yes, sir, and go back to, and it's like, and he'll roll his eyes. We put those words out there, and a lot of us, like, we kind of hear them, but we don't really take them to heart. We don't really like measure ourselves like, wait, can I slow down more? Am I being more precise? Because when you watch him demonstrate, like, part of the reason why like an 85-year-old Dan Inosanto can still take a 20-some-year-old guy with a stick with heat, like a guy coming at him with some heat and some speed and some aggression and some athleticism, why an 85-year-old Dan Inosanto can still smoke him is because he's got that target focus. Like, he knows exactly how to position himself in the most efficient of manners to achieve his target, like spot on, with reliability. And if he has to do that, like to ramp himself up, to amp himself up, to move with speed and aggression, at that age, it's possible, but it's not reliable. It's not sustainable, and it's punitive. Like, your body will pay a price for that. You know, so to watch him be able to tool most people that are, like, you know, trying to demo technique, like, man, he's probably one of the biggest, like, look at that. That's an endorsement of that kind of idea of slow down, be precise. Because if you're not, you don't know what you're missing. You're just throwing a punch and assuming that your punch is effective. Throwing a knee, assuming your knee is effective. Throwing a kick, assuming your kick lands and causes some kind of pain. But, like, does it debilitate? Is it effective? Does it, like, orient you in a more dominant fashion? And are you being efficient, or are you just expressing your own, like, emotional, like, angst on another human being? I think that kind of, like, that ability to slow down and be, like, super chill, super precise, super efficient, like, that's where the mastery is at. And for myself, as I get older, I don't want to train like a young person that's like a 16-year-old who's just amped up and got all of this, like, psycho that wants to come out on a heavy bag. I want to use as few muscles, as few moves as possible, totally skunk someone, and then, like, walk away.
No, it's so funny. And unfortunately, it's kind of like what Howie Long said a long time ago. He goes, by the time I learned everything I needed to know, my game day is over, you know, when I come to it. But I don't feel that way. I actually feel at this age, it's really interesting how I've adjusted my training. And it's all about getting results, you know, meaning it's understanding that, you know, you need more rest and recovery whenever there's extra exertion, like the old days. But then you can continue to do on a daily basis some form of the type of training we're talking about, which pays huge dividends when you go and put out that max effort. I saw I think I told you this, but I had a Toronto seminar, and simultaneously, it's a huge center that at the time, half the center was Guru Santos was putting on a thing. I saw exactly what you're talking about. What I had my guys, I pulled them over because Dan was teaching and he was doing very slow, deliberate Cali work. And he was just, moving the sticks and he was showing it. And I know some of my guys thought, oh, well, yeah, he's an old guy, blah, blah, blah. And I said, okay, just watch. I go, they're going to do something now. I knew exactly what was coming next because I'd seen him train before. Sure enough, he picked one of the young guys that came out there, and this kid came at him, and just the confidence, just the confidence and the speed that you would not expect out of him. But it wasn't just that; it was just that preciseness that he came in. And I told the guys at the time, I said, I hope when I'm his age, I can move half as well as this man can move, because you see the results of that. And it's a constant battle that you have to battle against yourself to go back and recharge and do those foundational things that then allow you to execute at that type of level,
Yeah, we get excited and then we start pandering to that excitement, right? Like we get, oh, I want to do this. And then we want to do it more vigorously, more intensely, more quickly. But right. The thing is that a lot of the value that we're looking for, the ability that we're looking for, that competence that we're looking for, lies on the other side of that speed. It's in going slow enough so that we can become like aware enough of faults in our movement, of where we need to fine tune our approach so that we can do these movements like in a way that's like, oh, now I just angled myself so that I cut off their ability to reply with counters. So now I can just do whatever I want. And then like, once they're going to try and do this, then I can just sector over here and do that instead. Like, these are the things that you don't get when you're just going fast and furious.
Well, there it is. I think that's a perfect place to stop. I think you get a full explanation on why training with the methodologies of slow accuracy is so important and what it yields for you. And again, it's really hard for us, especially if you're an adult, to slow things down. We think everything is hard and fast. And we equate the fact that you're going to use this information. You literally would be going as hard and as fast as you can. You're fighting for your life. That's why it's so important that you lock in that right foundation. So I hope, you mark this video and come back to it oftentimes, to remind yourself about training tempo and making sure that you put enough time into the tempos that we were just talking about, because it'll truly yield you the maximum results. I've been doing this stuff for upwards of 30 years, and the people that have had to use my information to save their own life have never come back to me and said, you know what, I'm not training fast enough. They always say the same thing. I didn't get everything I wanted, even though they performed fantastically and they were able to save their own life. They would say, I didn't get this the first time, I was off here or I was off there. I didn't get the, I didn't get the target exactly the way I want. Why? Because I'm training too fast. You can get into that mode where you just kind of, you're comfortable and, you're not really paying attention to that 1 square inch on that 1 square inch that you want to destroy. That's when using the tempos that we were just talking about and the training methodologies we were just talking about are so key. So please take advantage of that. Now, go to timlarkin.com, get your free masterclass. That's where I can go in depth on subjects not only like this, but also subjects that are a little dicey for YouTube that you absolutely need to know about. Just give us your email address and we will start the process of sharing all that content with you. Please also subscribe to this channel. Tell other people about this channel and hit the notification bell. Make your comments. That's what helps grow this channel. And I can't thank you enough for the support. We'll be back next with part 3 of my interview with Dr. Mark Cheng.